Jared Dillian. Own your money, own your life.
I'm Jared Dillian. This is the Jared Dillian Show. And you and I are talking about money. We're actually talking about debt. This is sort of a big discussion on debt. And if you want to call to talk about your money, please call 844-305-7800. That's 844-305-7800. This is the Jared Dillian Show. And I'm sort of a professional thinker. I like to think about stuff. I actually, my job is to think about stuff. I sit in a room all day and think about stuff, which is kind of a cool job. And sometimes I still get things wrong. But this is, philosophically speaking, here's what debt is. Debt allows you to enjoy a higher standard of living today at the expense of having a lower standard of living tomorrow. So let's say that again. Debt allows you to enjoy a higher standard of living today at the expense of having a lower standard of living tomorrow. So basically, you're pulling the future back is what you're doing. And this is true for individuals. Because if you think about it, if you take out a mortgage, you can't, most people who take out a mortgage can't afford to buy a house with cash. So they get to live in the house without being able to afford it. And the cost of that is they pay all this interest and they have a lower standard of living otherwise. And that's true about everything. It's true about the government, by the way, which is sort of like a larger discussion about the amount of government debt that we have. And that's basically what we've done. We borrowed from the future. We, as a country, United States of America, we enjoy a super high standard of living today. But at some point in the future, we will have a lower standard of living because we will have to pay it back. And we'll get to that in a second because there are people out there who say that we don't have to pay it back. Big discussion nowadays. So which would you rather do? Would you rather eat ramen noodles at age 25 or eat Alpo at age 75? Because that's your choice. It's actually either or. That's your choice. And I specifically remember going shopping with my wife when I was like 22, 23, 24 and buying ramen noodles for like 10 cents a piece. You know, my grocery bills when I was 22 were like $40. You know, like I just bought cheap stuff. Also, things were cheaper. I remember in the Safeway supermarket in my town in Washington State, cans of tuna were 25 cents. This was 1996. Cans of tuna were 25 cents. Now, this wasn't the white albacore. This was like the chunk light tuna. It was the cheap stuff. But 25 cents for a can of tuna. We've had a lot of inflation since then. But anyway, getting back to, would you rather eat ramen noodles at age 25 or Alpo at age 75? And I think if you ask people, like, they would say, yeah, I would rather put up with some discomfort now. I would rather put up with some hardships when I'm young, because nobody wants to put up with hardships when they're older. And, you know, a lot of people live their lives and they're like YOLO, right? And they just spend tons of money. And, you know, you say to them, like, well, what are you going to do about retirement? They're like, I'll just worry about it later. And then later comes. And basically what that looks like is they are in the worst nursing home in the world on Medicaid. That is what that looks like. You're sitting in a chair in the worst nursing home in the world, maybe not eating Alpo, but like it's bad. Or, you know, you just didn't save enough. You saved, a couple $100,000 and you just run through it and you end up in the worst nursing home in the world on Medicaid. So nobody wants that. But so I think if you ask people, you know, when they're younger, they'll say, yes, I'll make those sacrifices today. So that doesn't happen to me later, but that's not really how people behave. And, you know, saving, you know, people talk about saving for retirement. I've, you know, a couple days ago, I did a show about how you might want to consider not retiring. I don't want to retire. I think not retiring is not such a bad idea. But anyway, people talk about saving for retirement. What does that mean? Well, if you have a high standard of living in retirement, then you can do whatever you want. You can travel, you can see family, you can fly first class everywhere. That sounds pretty good. And we talked about what happens if you have a low standard of living in retirement. So these are choices. And I think just as human beings, we're just much more willing to put up with hardships when we're younger than when we're older. Like, you just don't want to have to put up with that stuff when you're older. And Social Security, by the way, which is a New Deal era program, was sort of meant to solve this. And, a lot of people don't understand how Social Security works, and they retire at age 62 and they get these teeny tiny benefits. And, number one, a lot of people don't really consider Social Security to be enough. They have to supplement that with other retirement income. And number two, since interest rates are so low, retirement income is really non-existent. So it's not good. You have to save a ton of money when you were younger, and most people just don't have any concept of that. But the more you spend today, the less you get to enjoy tomorrow. Let's get back to the political aspect. The United States of America is the third most indebted country in the world. Japan is number one. Italy is number two. We're right behind Italy. We're not that far behind Italy. Japan is like insane. Japan has massive amounts of debt. And the way they consider it is debt to GDP. So the U.S. has about 100% debt to GDP. Italy has about 107%, and Japan has 240%. So Japan has massive amounts of debt, and they're sort of like in the financial twilight zone, and nobody knows what's going to happen to them. We are in the danger zone. Once you get up 80, 90, 100% of GDP, then you're in the danger zone. And you're sort of in danger that you might experience some consequences. Interest rates might go up. I don't think we're going to default, but basically we enjoy a higher standard of living today, and we will have a lower standard of living tomorrow. And I mentioned before that some people think that we don't have to pay the money back, and this is a whole discussion right now in the finance community. I was actually thinking today, and this is sort of I'm going to get off topic here and just talk about something philosophical. I asked this on Twitter. I said, what country in the world is moving towards free markets and away from socialism? And I got some responses back. The UK, that just elected Boris Johnson, Poland, Brazil with Bolsonaro, but Bolsonaro is more of like a Trump-like figure. Maybe Slovakia, Greece, not that many places. And, I really worry sometimes about where this is going to all end up with debt and finance and inflation and all that stuff. Younger generations, particularly the millennials, I think realize that they're getting the short end of the stick. And it's, if you talk about the generational stuff, like baby boomers get all the blame. Sorry, they kind of deserve all the blame. They borrowed all the money, and Trump is a baby boomer and he's borrowing a ton of money, and the millennials are going to get stuck with the bill. And Generation X, like me, is kind of in the middle, and we kind of minded our own business, and we're going to make out fine. I really worry about debt in this country, and it's sort of a bigger political issue. It is a big, big, big issue, and I hope someday we start to care about it. I'm Jared Dillian. This is the Jared Dillian Show.
Jared Dillian. Now you know a rich guy.